Okay, so the stream is up and we're good to go here. So, good morning, everybody. It's actually dark enough out here on the deck that my lights that have a solar sensor on them are still on. It's that dark out here. So hopefully there's enough light for the camera to see the board fairly clearly. Okay, so yeah, everything's looking good. I got my let's see if you can see the chicken in there right down at the base of the tree. Come on, Elizabeth, show everybody you're there. Seeking shelter here because it is pretty wet, that's for sure. Okay, so today we're looking at the isometric. So, any questions about the work from before? I got a couple of questions from some of you that I haven't got back to you yet, and I'll start getting those questions back to you on Discord. But if anybody else has got some questions here, just while I get set up, we got a moment here. Only if you would want to. If you wanted to do that in your ground floor plan, please do. So that if you guys want to show a little bit of kind of what your landscape concept would be, just if you want to show some 24 by 24 pavers, or just show a few dots to indicate concrete, that would be totally legit. So for those of you wanting to show some landscape information, that would be great. And just it would add that much more to your ground floor plan. So, yeah, and I mean, at this point, we haven't kind of talked about what you would see in a ground floor plan anyway. Well, I mean, in terms of outside stuff, and we actually even haven't talked that much about floor plans in general. We're just kind of getting into this thing, but you guys are already getting pretty deep into the graphics of floor plans, doing it by hand and everything. So, yeah, it's cool stuff. Okay, so just making sure my sheet here is going to be as visible as possible. Yes. And so the isometric view is going to take up a ton of space on the sheet. So the first order of business is actually to determine if we can even do the isometric at quarter scale, or whether we need to start thinking about using a different scale for the isometric, and it's possible that we might have to. I think in previous years I've kind of alternated between using quarter inch and using a smaller scale, depending on the design that I had done and how much of what do you call it, a cantilever I had done, or how much the top unit was offset from the bottom. Right. So if you're taking up all kinds of space with your design, yeah, you're going to need tons of space on the sheet. So, of course, the first thing we got to do here is start thinking about how much space we really are going to require. So, if you think about an isometric, we're going to be laying out sort of at the base here, and then our unit's going to go up and then come sideways. Now, for those of you who have done kind of an L-shaped unit or L-shaped design, we're just going to see here, and I'll just sketch it out, why you might then have to drop down to a smaller scale. So if we've got our first floor of the unit here, and then we have an L-shaped unit, so if you So I'm not drawing the lines in the back here, but I'm just showing how that second unit can end up using a lot of space. And here I'm not even quite at 30 degrees, so there's actually a very good chance that I'm going to need to go even farther in that direction. So if your plan of your unit is in fact L-shaped, like so looking down on the top of our unit from above, when you do an isometric of this shape, a 1/4 inch to a foot, it could be really tough to try to get this to work. So what you could do is try and start with your top corner and just lightly sketch out the lines and kind of see where you're going to work or how it's going to end up. So in my floor plan, I had 25 feet on this side. So between the south wall of my lower unit and the south wall of my upper unit. So I'm just going to take a quick stab at this and see where I'm at. So there's a little bit of my unit that will go out beyond the other side here. So this should have been dashed as well, just as I was doing that little diagram for you. So let's just see how this lays out. So I am going to try and take a stab at this at 1/4 inch to a foot. So if we crank this over 30 degrees, we'll be able to see how this is going to start laying out on our sheet. Now, keep in mind that when I lay this, the upper or the lower unit over 30 degrees, this doesn't exactly draw things properly. This would be sort of like an axonometric presentation. So 30 degrees here, and then the upper unit will still be at 30 degrees, but going in the other direction. Okay, so here we go. So I'm suspecting that if I try and get my my back corner of my upper unit sort of as far back into this corner as I can, that I might be okay. So I'm going to start laying this out here. So like I said, here's kind of a rough 30 degree, and I can get rid of the 45 triangle because I won't be needing that today at all. Okay, so here's kind of the back line, the top back line of the unit. So this is going to be the back corner of the roof. So if I start, somewhere, where's my scale here? Here we go. So there's 0, there's 8 feet. So if I kind of take this as my starting point, say right there. So I'm just going to faintly draw on a line here. So this is the vertical for the back corner of the lower unit. And then here, I'm going to draw so this is the roof line, and then the other roof line coming down in this direction here, right from the same intersection. And I'm just going to very roughly see where this is going to place me on the sheet. Okay, so we're coming over 8'2". And then down here. And so 8'6" for the height of the unit. So that's the top of it. Now remember, and this is another design concept here that you folks can decide upon. When we did the first container unit in the elevations, remember we talked about the concrete pad that these things sit on, and that there is, you can either have the steel container overhang that concrete pad, or you could have it flush. So here I'm going to do a 6-inch recess where the concrete is going to sit in 6 inches in both directions. So I've got to measure where that line is going to come down from. So here I'm just going to grab that 6-inch line here. So measuring 6 to there. And then again, these are just really faint construction lines because I really don't want to see any of this sort of geometry in my final drawing. And then 6 inches in there. So that's where my line is going to come down. And so it's going to come down 8 inches from this point. So I came down 6 inches, in 6 inches, and that's the corner of where the concrete starts. Yeah. That's what we're doing, both containers on one sheet. So I'm trying to see if this is going to fit. So it's going to be a 3D view of both containers, the upper and the lower. So I'm laying out the lower container right now, and just showing where everything's going to sit. Now I'm just realizing here that if I go down 6 and in 6, I'm not even going to see the concrete line. So I am on the fly here, going to make an executive decision to just forego the inset, just so I can show a ground line here. I didn't think it was going to be inset that much. Okay, so that's going to be my ground line right here. And my board's a little bit tight here, so I'm just going to loosen off those knobs a bit. Everything's just kind of a bit sticky because it's all damp out here. It's cold too. I got a wedding this afternoon. Some good friends of mine are, their son's getting married. Picked today to get married. Well, they're going to do it up at the falls, at the golf course up on the east side of town, which you folks may know about. So it was supposed to be an outdoor wedding. They've got an indoor location. I suspect they'll be using it today. Okay, so there's 0. And I'm going to come down here to 40. So there's 40 there. So I'm just going to continue these lines down here. One of the things I like most about hand drafting is that you draw a line and then you slide your triangle over and you do the next line. I don't know. That just so sweet. That's right. Yeah, if the lines line up, it's great, and if they don't line up, then it's not so great. So here is our bottom corner. So I'm going to measure up 8'6" here, and just so that I can make sure that the line, when I bring it down from the other corner there, just to confirm that I've got the measurement sorted. So I'm just going up to 8'6" here, and I'm just putting a little tick out in the middle of space there, and just making sure that when I bring this 30-degree line down from the other corner, that I haven't, because one of the things that you can do, and if you're not careful, is you can, as you're pulling the ruler down, if you don't bring it down around, you don't use force at the middle, it will skew the ruler a little bit as you move it up and down. Not too much, but just enough to create some imprecision in your drafting. Now, have I gotten down there yet? Oh yeah, there I am. Okay. Okay. So this is now the outside corner of the top of my unit. And so from here, I got to measure down this way 25 feet. So I just got to make sure that I'm going to fit onto the bottom of the sheet. I've actually got a good feeling about this. Something you never heard Han Solo say. Yes, got the reference in there. So, yeah. So there's 25 feet. Look at that, I think. Oh, well, it just depends here because I still have to do my column, right, for the bottom of my, for the support on the end of my unit here. So we're just going to see if everything's going to be okay. So there's 8, 2. So will it fit? Might not. So this might have been a brief exercise in futility here. And instead of drawing all these lines, I maybe committed a little bit too much before I got started on this thing. So we'll talk about the next scale that I might have to drop down to if I indeed determine that I can't make this work. Okay, 0, there's 8 there. So 2 inches on the other end, 8 inches there. Got my little tick on there. So now I'm drawing the floor line. This line, of course, would be obscured by the upper unit itself. So I'm just drawing this as a construction line here. Okay, so if I can get down 8'6" plus 8 inches, so that is 9'2" for my column here, wherever I want to place it, I'm still okay. So let's see here. Survey says, I'll turn the ruler around so the camera can see it here. So 0, 2, 4, 6. Nope, I'm off. So even if I pushed this up a little bit farther on the other side, I would have been out of luck. So a 1/4 inch to a foot, this thing isn't quite going to work. Now, let's look at some of the other scales. If you did 1/8 inch to a foot, this whole thing would be half the size, and it would be too small. So what we're going to do here, and this is where you folks may hopefully do have the 3/16 of an inch scale. If you don't, come talk to me and we'll figure out what we can do for you. So now 3/16 of an inch to a foot. Now you can see here, there's my 40-foot mark right here. Now this is instead of 1 to 48, that's the ratio for a 1/4 inch to a foot. 3/16 of an inch to a foot is 1/64 scale. So that's quite a bit different. So you folks can see there's 40 feet right there, and that's you know, that's going to work for no matter what you folks have drawn. So if you have some concerns about what you've drawn, like say, so if I had centered my unit, so if I had instead of a 25-foot overhang, like maybe I had a 20-foot overhang, that extra 5 feet, so you can see right here, there's 0, there's 5 feet right here. So that point there, if I had just made my overhang 5 foot less, I could totally do this at 1/4 inch scale. So I have to pull up stakes and start again. Now I'm actually not going to do that because I want to carry on with this one and talk about just drawing the rest of the unit. And you can kind of see where this is going to go, and it's not going to take me a whole lot of time, but I'm just going to carry on here and do the verticals, and you guys can kind of see how this is all going to come together. So I'm just going to put in my construction lines here for my verticals and then draw them in. And then we'll talk about putting in the windows and also talk about hatching. Okay, so there's my top line here going across on the diagonal up to this point here. Oh wow, did the sky ever lighten up? I don't know if you folks noticed on the screen just how much lighter it got. My deck lights have gone out finally. Now as you start getting some of these upper lines for the top of your unit drawn out, you can start beginning to erase some of the geometry that you know you won't be seeing. So here, of course, I'm not going to see this back floor line. It'll still be there kind of faintly, so I know that it's there. And of course my concrete line in the bottom of my box for the unit below, can erase all that. So then over here, the deck that I'm going to draw. So I'll just show here a little bit of what we could do for the deck on top of the lower unit. So I'm erasing some of these lines here as well. Now you can see I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I wanted to put a 3-foot high guardrail around my deck. So I would have been screwed anyway. I had to go to 3/16. So if you folks want to just play it safe and use 3/16, that would totally be wise. Now, so for a 3-foot guardrail around the top here, so you can party hard without having to worry yourself about gravity. There's 3 feet right there. So that's going to come down, of course, and end at the lines here for the upper unit. It's coming into the view here. So for something like a glass railing, you would need to have a vertical support about every 6 feet or so, just for support of the glass. So a little 2-inch set of parallel lines every 6 feet. So here I'll just measure 6, 12, 18, and then there'll be one here, 24, so that'll poke up as well. And so what I'll do is throw on some, I'll just eyeball some 2-inch lines here. So there's my 6-foot mark. Right, so these things will be the uprights. We talked about glass and how you would demonstrate that this is, as a material and elevation to show that it is glass. So just a couple of marks like that indicate that it's glass. Same here. And you can do that on your windows as well. So other kind of finishing details here. At the corners and at the top of the unit and at the bottom of the unit, there's the steel header, corner member. So these are all tubes that, because the way these things are built, they have a steel tube at the bottom and top. I've not got the scale right here. And then they weld the corrugated material to the top and bottom on all these different sides. So that's when you're looking through it in section what you see, and then they've got your floor structure comes across. So what we need to draw, and it also gives us a place to sort of end the hatching that we're going to use as well. So I'm going to draw 6-inch. So I'm going to put this top and bottom on the container, and then we'll talk about the hatching. And I'm going to have one at the side too, but I think the tube at the top of the container goes right through to the end. Okay, and then we'll have one at the bottom as well. So 6 inches for the concrete, then for the steel tube at the base. And then finally, the vertical. And you know what? I think the vertical is a 4-inch. I'm just going to make it a little bit narrow. It doesn't matter what size you make it, just as long as you've got something there. All right. So when you have put in your windows, so I boxed in everything that I need here. So what we want to really do is make a nice heavier outline at the real corners of this thing so that its shape is more clearly defined. So there's my vertical. Now the glass, of course, has got a thickness as well, which we'll need to show. So instead of a single line, there would be sort of a modest double line that would be used to indicate the thickness of the glass. So I'll just add a second line on here. Not too terribly thick, of course. That was actually too thick, but it'll do. And then at the ground here too. So our ground line. So this is where the concrete hits the ground. Now we don't have a ground line as such to extend in any direction here because this isn't an elevation view. So a ground line would not be drawn. Just again, kind of a medium line right at ground. And then I will add just a little bit more definition to the line between the concrete and the steel. Okay, so once you've got your windows in place, now we need to indicate what kind of a material we're going to be using on the outside of these things. So you've got options. Um, if you look up longboard aluminum siding, that's a cool product, um, which would make it look like a wood product, but it's got a very precise finish to it. So it'll be very linear when you put it on, and so you could orient those horizontally. So those things come in 6 or 8 inch dimensions. And so if you wanted to do that, what we would do here, yes, longboard is awesome. It is. It was actually invented in here in BC. So there's a manufacturer in Langley that cranks all that stuff out. So it's yeah, it's awesome. So here I'm just going to measure off. Yes, exactly. So you go horizontal or vertical. I'm just repeating myself because your voices aren't going to be on the YouTube stream. So if someone's coming back later, they won't be hearing what you guys are saying, only what I am saying. So here I'm just measuring off the lines just to very faintly to help me put the hatch lines are going to go across this thing. So you want to do this in elevation as well. Now it's up to you. You can make the hatch lines go all the way across, or you can kind of fade them out here. So you're going to see I'm just going to go up some of the way here because it's often done on these things. It's understood that hatching is time consuming, and so sometimes they don't even do the whole facade in it. They'll just do bits and pieces of it so that people can see that, hey, um, that's the finish that's going to be used on it. And you can see I'm actually just eyeballing these other hatch lines here. Yes, yeah, the hatch lines are light. They're light lines. They'll be a little heavier than your construction lines because um, for reproduction purposes, we would want to be able to see them. So that's one option that you've got there. Now, if you just wanted to show these things as raw steel with the original corrugated metal there, then what we would do instead of doing horizontal hatch, we would do a vertical hatch. So I'll just take a second to tighten up my lines here, and then we'll show what that would look like. Now these ones they're a little farther apart because depending on a container, uh, those corrugations can be fairly coarse, and we do want to differentiate between if you were using more than one finish, you kind of want to indicate a difference between those finishes with regards to the hatching. So I'll just show that in a second here. Okay, so then for doing if we have a window frame here on the end, there's a 2-inch wide frame for the hold the glass in place all the way around. So I'm just going to draw that in here. And then I will show that glass hatch. And I am going to show a divider here in the middle. And again, just those double little ticks on there just to let people know that they're looking at glass. Okay, so if we are wanting to do corrugated for the finish on these things, we're going to get into that here. So I'm going to use a wider hatch band, like maybe a foot. Now the flutes, of course, that's not their actual spacing on these on these containers, but it helps to sort of, you know, make it look like it's not as sort of a fine a material as the horizontal stuff that we were showing on the other side. So I'm going to draw these things at about, I'm just looking here to see, you know, and I kind of think about when I see one of these things when I'm driving down the road, I might do them at 1.6 feet. If I do them at a foot might be okay actually. So I'm just going to mark those off lightly here. Now, we're also going to talk about what happens if you've got an angled offset with your isometric. So there we go. So there's our vertical hatch lines here for the, just assuming that it's raw steel, still with the graffiti on it. Sometimes you see these container houses and people just leave them exactly as they came off the back of the train. It would be, yeah. No, it makes them look badass. No, that's right, exactly. Yeah, it's got to be haute couture graffiti. There we go. Okay, so now let's talk about how you guys are going to lay things out if you've got a rotated unit. So it's not at 90 degrees, it's some other angle, like say 30 degrees. So once you've got your lower unit boxed out, and so keep your lower unit on the 30, so it's kind of anchored down using the isometric method. And it's going to be a bit trickier because you're going to have to kind of figure out the grid. So what I'm just going to be drawing here is the top of the lower unit. So I'm just starting with that. That's all I'm doing. So now what you have to do is you have to figure out where the corners of your unit take place. So what you've got to do in your plan is to find those four corners by measuring them. So let's look at the plan here for a second. So there's your lower unit again. So if you are rotating your unit, this is going to be a little bit tricky, but so what you have to do is figure out the distance. We'll use this one corner here as the starting point. You have to figure out the X and Y from the corner of the unit to the corner of your upper unit. So you're going to need 4 measurements here at each end to get your points to start with, and then do the same on the other end. So here, over, and same here. So you're going to need those 4 measurements on each end to locate the corners. So having done that, so let's say that you're looking at this corner here. So in your isometric, you've got to measure over until you find the right displacement sort of in the vertical location in the plan, and then you've got to come over horizontally and find that corner. Same with this other one. You've got to come over the right horizontal displacement, right, as you measure here, and then come down from the corner and locate those 2 points. then same on the other end. So you've got to figure out your how much you're coming up, say for this one here, and then over. X marks the spot, and then over and up for this one. So then you've got to draw the, and I don't think I came up far enough here. It's going to be there. So then you can draw your isometric lines between them, and your verticals will still be vertical, the standard amount. Connect them together, and there you go. So then for windows and stuff, I'm not sure that you're, because you're not on the 30/60, I don't think you can measure along this line. I think this may, in fact, not be exactly 40 feet. So if you've got windows along this face, then you have to do the same thing for the windows. You got to measure down and then over and locate them in that approach. That's, as I recall, that's what has to happen so that your drawing still looks correct. So it's definitely a little bit more work to set up. Your vertical dimensions, no issue. It's your horizontal dimensions that are a little bit tougher. And again, finding the corners of your upper unit is what you've got to do. So yeah, if you just stuck to doing things perpendicularly, then you can use the tried and true 30/60 degree measurements associated with isometric drafting. Okay, any other questions here before I let you folks carry on with the getting the isometric going? This is Monday, yeah. So views required are your ground floor plan, your upper floor plan, 4 elevations, a section, and an isometric. And it's one section, just one. And that was the one that we talked about yesterday where you cut through the lower corridor. So you see the kitchen in the background. So yeah, that's it. Well, with Monday we're supposed to be getting into AutoCAD, but you guys can tell me how much pain you're feeling, and we'll see how you do. So if there's any questions and stuff during the weekend, if there's any other difficulties that you guys run into, then we'll address it at that point. So. No, the floor plans will be on separate sheets. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you'll have your floor plan on one sheet, your lower floor plan, your upper floor plan on another sheet. You might be able to get 2 elevations on a sheet. I don't think you'll be able to get much more than 2 per sheet. But yeah, your mileage may vary on that one. So 2 elevations per sheet. So you're looking at about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 pages total for this thing. Yes, the upper and the lower. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be 4. So north, south, east, and west. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's how this is going to roll. So I'll leave this on my paper here on the board, and I'm actually going to be staying out here on the board while I do some prep. So I'll be right handy here if you guys have got any questions about any of this stuff. Okay, I'm just going to end the stream here.